Greetings, everybody. Welcome to the Artist Lounge once again. I say it every time. You know, we got a very special guest on the show because every single guest is a special guest. We make sure we have the highest quality talent possible in the Triangle region currently to show you and display to you and to interview. His name shows up about 15 times in the bio, so I'm gonna try and say it without saying his name, even though you know his name because you clicked on the video. But I just like, this is a whole thing that I have to have a little suspense. Starting at 6, this artist has always had an interest in guitar, beginning formal lessons at 10. He's always had one dream, and that's to be a musician. He's attended and holds alumni status from Berklee College of Music, a bachelor's in music performance from Greensboro College, an MBA in music business from SNHU and Berklee College of Music, and is currently now, and we'll get more into this, pursuing a PhD in management from Walden University. He's been a part of many projects, studio albums, and performances from his own 2013 debut record, Endless Spaces, Endless Voices, running his own production company, performing with multiple bands, with a project now entitled Bearded Honeys. We'll get more into that. Being a freelance guitarist for hire. He's had opportunities to work with Edwin McCain, which is a huge name out there, Ernie Isley, another big name, Jeff Lockhart, Taylor Barefoot, and many others. Currently being a full-time musician, he's pursuing a passion to educate, inform, and create new channels to teach and aid artists trying to make a living from their craft. And on top of that all, he's still working on a vlog based on music gear, tips for musicians, guitar videos, and marketing ideas for musicians in general. Haven't seen this guy in like 9 years, and we'll get into that story and how that came about. Please welcome to the Artist Lounge, Mr. Reyn.
What's up, buddy?
Noble.
That's a lot, right?
It's a lot, man, but you know what? We got to get it in there. We got to get the people a 2-minute synopsis of what's going on here.
I mean, you got to, but at the same time, it's just like when I wrote that and like thought about that, I'm like, that's not that much, but I'm like, okay, whatever.
Adam Pitt said the same thing when he came on like a couple episodes back. Like, man, that was a really wordy bio. It was like, it's just one paragraph.
When you're typing it out, you don't think it's going to sound that long, and then when you're starting to say, you're like, man, that's a lot, you know?
Yeah. So as we always start, you know, from the beginning on this show, beginning stages. How are we here?
I mean, how are we here? I mean, so like when I was a kid, I always was in a musical household. Dad was a trombonist, had like been around, got accepted to Juilliard, didn't go type thing.
Wow.
So like very big into like classical and like church music, brass. And
was there any specific reason why he didn't go? Was it just
the one he always tells me is he was in love and chose that over the music career.
Wow.
And then and you know that's how it went. So like at that point it was, you know, I always knew about music. There was always music playing in the house. You know, there was always exposure to music. And I picked up like a guitar that he had that he played at church when I was like 6 and started hitting strings on it. And I always liked the sound of something, or the piano we had in the house, just banging on it. And it was almost kind of like this thing. It was always, that was what I gravitated toward. So when I was about 10 years old, I want to play guitar. And from then on out, I think they bought me like some starter kit guitar thing that he thought he wasted $100 on that I'd never touch. And here we are 20 some years later almost. And it's the job. I mean, like,
yeah.
So that's where everything kind of started, was just that young age being surrounded by so much music and always pushing me towards like, that's what I want to do. And then mom was a huge hair metal freak. So like Rat, Poison, Bon Jovi, all that stuff. And I could remember like seeing videos of that when they still actually played videos on MTV, and it was still reruns of like that early 90s, late 80s era of like the power ballad.
Right.
And you just see that roaring guitar solo and you're like, I want to be that guy.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't care about the hair or the glit. I want to be that guy. And that's where it came from, is just that want always to be there.
Were there any specific influences besides the ones that you just named, like any like specific icon from that era?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that kind of came later, but I always coin, like, you know, there's people that have always said, like, especially some of these people, that they saw the Beatles on Ed Sullivan, and that was the thing that pushed them to want to do music.
Yes.
For me, I remember it was the Living on a Prayer video, and it was Richie Sambora. Like that was the guy that was like, he looks cool.
Fantastic
like,
musician.
I want to be that guy. And then of course, as you get older and you start listening to more music, it's like everybody from that era, whether you played any instrument, was a monster.
Yep.
Like they were monster players.
Yep.
And so it was kind of like that almost pushed me in a way, because the way I had to learn how to play guitar for what I wanted to do was these people that were doing things that were just huge.
So you started more along the lines of, because you obviously Berkeley alumni, you've dabbled in a lot of different genres.
Everything,
but
it changes.
Started with rock.
It was rock, and like just specifically, and it kind of backtracked. So it was that 80s era thing going back to, and then it started like Zeppelin became a huge thing.
Right.
In that blues rock stage of like the 70s. But then as it progressed, going to Berkeley, you know, it was just this world opened up of so much new music and so much new style and how to approach the thing. And, you know, it changed things.
Can you walk me now? Well, it's funny so we'll go down this road for a second. That's where we met.
That is where we met.
Now, I think I was 15 or 16, probably a sophomore, junior in high school, and was doing the whole college touring thing. And I had gone that week to like New York, to Juilliard, and to some other schools. And my mom and I got in the car. We drove to Boston. It was like a 5-6 hour drive from New York to go see Berkeley, and it was great. And I think
we were on the same tour group.
I think we were in the same tour group.
We were sitting in the waiting room, and I think my mom was talking to your mom, and it came up that you guys lived in North Carolina.
Yeah.
And we did too, you know. So it became this thing, and they talked this whole entire like time we were on this tour. And I can remember the tour guide actually, because he's actually still a very close friend of mine. The senior that was touring us. I mean, he's Marcus Miller's drummer now.
Wow.
I mean, yeah. So I mean, you know, but that whole entire experience, just from me going to look at college and him, I mean, that's how we met. I mean, 9 years ago.
Yeah.
So I mean,
and that was when you were a senior.
I was
in high school.
I was about to be in my senior years.
Okay.
So it was kind of like making sure that if I was going to commit to this place that I wanted to go to, I wanted to see it.
Now, how was the audition experience for you?
Painful. I've always been this guitar player that, you know, they always say natural talent or you had to work at it. I was more on that. I always had to work very hard.
You and I both, man.
I mean, I didn't just pick up a guitar and shred in like 3 weeks. I mean, I had to work so hard to become a player. But the audition process they've got, and it's apparently from what I hear, it's gotten more strenuous.
Wow.
But I mean, constant 8 to 10 hour days in high school when you're supposed to be having fun with your friends and you're playing and going up there for like, you're sitting there in a room knowing that 90% of the other people in there are guitar players and they're only going to take like 60 of you. And you go in there, and I remember this clear as day. Some guy sat beside me, patted me on the back, and he said, "How are you doing?" And I turned around. It was a guy from North Carolina that I actually grew up with.
Wow.
He had just graduated from Chapel Hill with a degree in business, and he was going to Berkeley to pursue what he wanted to do. So Rick just came out of nowhere and sat beside me and patted me on the. It was like the most comforting thing in that you saw comfort in it. But they take you into this like sealed room with people that don't even play your instrument. They're like just music geniuses.
Yeah.
And they run you through the stuff that's on their website. That's what you've got to do. And it's supposed to be a 15-minute audition and then a 15-minute like interview. So it's 30 minutes total.
Wow.
I was in my playing part of my interview for an hour. Because the drum guy who was playing the drums, I mean, I actually had a full band, pretty much a drummer and a bass player and a keyboard player as my auditioners. So they just kept on calling out keys for tunes to do like improvs and jams and play a slow blues. And they lost track of time because we just were having so much fun.
Wow.
And that was like the cool, I'm like, this is kind of how it's going to be.
Yeah.
This is where I need to be.
Yeah.
So, I mean, from that, you know, you wait the month and a half to hear back. And I remember sitting at the house and Dad came out and said, 12 o'clock, they're supposed to send me an email. 12:01 hit, my phone went off. There was an email in there. They send you this long paragraph where like the first 3/4 of it is like, it makes you feel like you didn't get in. It's like this, like,
that's horrible.
You know, this is how many people auditioned. This is how many people were taking. It's a 13% acceptance rate from how many people auditioned. I think 15,000 that year.
Jeez.
They took 900 for a freshman class. So you hear all this and you're just like, you get this pit in your stomach and it keeps going lower. You're thinking, this is not going to happen. You get the bottom of the thing. By the way, you've gotten in.
Wow.
I flipped out and I was thinking it didn't matter about, you know, the normal thing, like how am I going to pay for this?
Right.
You just got into the number one music school in the country.
Yeah.
You know, and then later that day I was at school and I got another email on my phone. Said I got a scholarship and I lost it. I'm like, there's no way.
Wow.
Like they sent this email to the wrong person. Like I'm not that great of a player at this point in my life. Like there's no way. And it came down to, I think I talked to somebody like, how do people get scholarships here? Like, I'm not the best player. They said it's how you sounded. And that's where I figured out tone and sound was a bigger deal than how well I could play sometimes.
That's Stevie Ray Vaughan 101, man.
Yeah, I mean, and that's how I've translated everything later in life. I may not play I could play very intricate and really technical things, but I sound best when I go back to basics sometimes and just do what I do, you know?
Man, that's some story.
I mean, it's crazy that's where everything kind of like thrusted me into the music business. It wasn't just like a slow walk. It was a giant at that point, just throw you in it.
Total faith step. Yeah,
absolutely.
So that was really the beginning stages of your, shall we say, formal.
Yeah, like openly formal. I mean, I'd taken lessons through high school and stuff, but that was like the big time at this point. Like these people are grooming you to basically be a professional.
Right.
And you really feel that when you get up there. Like the audition process is one thing, but when you go back up, you have to audition again.
For placement, I'm assuming.
For placement. Like the way they do it, they rate you by number. Certain people get certain numbers, you know, at the re-audition process, and that helps you get placed with an instructor or how much theory you know to go into a certain theory class, all this type of stuff.
Right.
And that's kind of like when you brought up different genres and stuff, that's how I got thrusted into away from rock music. Because I walked in, I got a decent enough number to pick my own teacher. And of course I wanted to study with Tomo Fujita, who taught John Mayer. Like that was the everybody wants to study with that guy.
Right.
Book solid. So I couldn't get him. And then so I didn't know anybody else. I mean, I'd done research, but not that much. And I said, just put me with somebody who's the exact opposite of me. I said, I want to do something. If I'm going to be here, I'm going to expand myself.
That's good.
Put me with somebody who's not me.
Wow.
I go into my lesson the next day, and there's like a Strat sitting there, which is not my thing, or like single coil guitars were not my thing, and then this guy comes in wearing like a pair of really floral pants and a floral shirt and like ball cap, and sunglasses on inside, and he sits down. He's like, "My name's Jeff Lockhart. I'm your teacher. Where are you from?" I said, "I'm from North Carolina." He said, "Play country music." And I'm like, "No, I don't play country music at all. I actually play rock music." And he's like, "Well, I'm going to teach you how to become basically the most diverse soul guitar player you could ever become, like playing Motown and stuff like that."
Wow.
Complete departure from what I was doing.
Wow.
And I remember sitting there for the whole first lesson. He made me play the chord progression for Sex Machine by James Brown for 30 minutes until I got it right with my right hand. It's not a hard song to play, but your right hand is a thing. That started him and I's like kind of friendship on top of it, not just with, you know, him being my teacher. And, you know, through him and I got, you know, Ernie Isley came into the picture, him and I talking with him because they were friends.
Right.
I mean, Jeff was Brian McKnight's music director before he was a teacher. So it was just this big thing about how you meet these people through this one guy. But he really focused me on how to be the tightest player I could be, because that's what you have to do.
Yeah.
And then the last thing before I actually chose to leave and come back to North Carolina, he said was the best thing you could do is never limit yourself to one genre of music, because you're never going to get paid.
Yeah.
You know, if you say you're only going to play rock music, he's like, you might get 4 gigs a year if you live in the South. He's like, if you play country, you might get a little bit more. He's like, but you got to play everything because you can take every gig that comes your way. And so that became my personal mission and my own self was, I'm going to learn enough about every type of music where I can go gig it and I can go play it. And that's where country music kind of came into play. Was then I started realizing that these older country players were monsters. Like way more, to me, that was harder than learning how to play half those 80s solos when I was a kid.
A lot of chicken picking.
A lot of chicken picking, a lot of chord scales, a lot of double stops. I mean, stuff.
And I fell in love with this stuff a few years back, like, because it was never my thing. And then
huge thing. I mean, Danny Gatton was the big one. Like, you know, he was a huge telly player in the early 90s, not with us anymore. But, I mean,
yeah,
like somebody showed me that. I'm like,
oh, the guy's nuts.
I want to be able to do that. You know, like, that's cool. And so that's kind of pushed me to where I'm at right now is like I still do everything, but the main things that come up are country music because I've really immersed myself in that, and that's kind of become the hobby thing. Like when I sit down and want to play music, I play country and bluegrass,
right?
Because it's a challenge.
Now, when you were at Berkeley for the first couple of years, was it more of I want to do the guitar route, and then because now you're wearing multiple hats, and a lot of folks.
The only thing I wanted to do when I was at Berkeley, and they taught us this in like a class they teach every freshman coming in. First thing they do is show you John Mayer's report card from the semester he was there. Because everybody comes there and wants to be him because he's like the guitar god of our generation type thing. You see that every class, he's got like failing grades, except for his private lesson. He always went to his private lesson. But he became a monster player from just spending his time playing. And of course, that's not what they want you to do, but it's what he did. So I always wanted to be the person that was well balanced, but I spent most of my time playing. But I ended up with, the guy was in my bio, Taylor Barefoot. He's actually a North Carolina-based guy, moved up to Massachusetts, go to Berkeley, left, and started his own studio. So I got to sit into his studio and be involved and look at how things were done with production and, all this different stuff. And it became an eye-opener saying, do I just want to be a player or do I want to kind of learn how to do this too? So I started dabbling at home with an interface in my apartment and all this other stuff. I'm like, this is cool, but this is something that I'm probably never going to learn everything about. And that was like, I'm never going to learn everything about the guitar either.
Yeah.
So it thrusted me into that place. But then I'm saying, I did a couple times. I'm like, I'm not the best at this. I can do it to make it work, but I'm not the best. And that's always been my thing is since I was a kid, and this is kind of what dictates everything I do. I've always been told I couldn't do it from a young age, from it be teachers so guitar became a big deal. I had a visual perception problem when I was a kid. And so I could think about everything. I couldn't get it down or use my hands to write it out. I had a teacher they said they should have held me back, but they said, you can't do this. And the biggest lesson my parents ever taught me was the best way and not get angry to make somebody eat their words is to prove them wrong by your accomplishments.
Actions.
Absolutely. I had college professors tell me when I graduated undergrad, we're not going to recommend you for a master's degree. Now, that's a heavy thing, especially for these people who've been teaching you for so long.
Jeez.
But after that, 2 masters later.
Wow.
I had somebody tell me after my master's that it was probably the most silly thing to do to go get my PhD. Time to prove them wrong again. I've had people tell me that music's not a viable career option or that being an artist nowadays is I'm doomed to probably living a menial lifestyle or yada, yada. It's these people that have business jobs. I have experience in business too. If you run it the right way, you can make a living,
And how could you deny yourself?
You can't deny your drive. If you kill your drive on something that you are so pushing forward to, which
you'll kill yourself.
Exactly. And I did that for years. I pushed it back because I thought, no, I've had my chance. I need to do something else. Every time it comes back to music or something involving music.
Yeah.
Why am I going to sit there and destroy my inside by not doing it? The thing that I've wanted to do since I was a kid. So, I've driven that. And then that's why with, what you were saying at Berkeley, when it came to what I wanted to do, I kept on pushing and pushing to be a player. And when I left, I started seeing the business aspects I fell short on. And that's where that came from. So I'm like, I'm going to be a player, but I'm going to be a player that knows what's going on. I'm going to be able to know if somebody's not doing good by me in a management sense.
Before it happens.
Or not be the person that gets caught off guard and I do hit it as somewhat decent sized, income from it. And I have a manager who's running my income. He's taking too much money and I end up losing everything.
Right.
Like so many people in this industry do. So I wanted to be the person that knew.
Well, it's funny because you and I both, my undergraduate is business administration.
Right.
So, and it just happened quite honestly because my parents and I made a deal, which was basically, look, we've been supporting you as an artist since you were 4 years old. We saw it in you. But you're getting a 4-year degree.
It's much like what happened with me.
So figure out what you want. And I really didn't know at the time. And I was going through a lot of weird life vicissitudes at the time. So it just turned into this thing where I was like, all right, whatever.
You should just do it, right?
And I ended up finishing it. It took 5-6 years online, but I got it.
Well, it's like when I wanted to be a musician in high school, I thought I was just going to go out and move somewhere and play. And do the old, I'm going to live in my car lifestyle, all that stuff.
Right.
No, mom and dad were like, we've been supporting you in this dream thing. You're going to college. And even there was a point in college where I got offered a very big like touring gig. And I called home because like, you know, your parents support you and everything and they're helping you out. You want to run it by them. You don't just make the decision.
Well, if you're like us.
If you're like us, you know,
and
we're different than a lot of other people.
And it's weird.
So I called home and I'm like, I just got offered this great thing. They're going to move me out to LA. They're going to pay me all this money. It's going to be like $120,000 a year. And then I got stopped. Okay, you can go do this. It's a 4-year guaranteed contract, but you're not thinking about living expenses in LA. 120,000 is not that much in LA like it is here, you know. But then they're like, what are you going to do after 4 years? You're not going to have a degree. Sure, you're going to have contacts and stuff in the business, but you're not going to have a degree. And it made me stop and think. And I didn't do it, you know, because it's like I always finished what I started, but also it was a security thing. And sometimes in this business, a lot of us don't do secure things. We just make the decision and do it. And that's why with the business side of things I'm doing, every choice I make, is irrational as it may seem sometimes, is calculated.
Right.
And like there's a calculation of like how it could go either way. And what I do if it goes one way or the other.
Would you assess it as risk analysis then?
It's pretty much just it's a risk analysis thing. I mean, you're like,
and whether it's on paper or not, I mean, this is it's the same thing in my brain. The hamster's constantly turning.
It doesn't stop.
It never stops.
And for, I think, creative minds, not just in the music world, but anything, if we're pursuing this as a living, it's always going to go.
What's the cost?
What's the cost? You know, we've got gear we have to buy. We have, you know, technology things we have to spend a lot of money on. I think musicians don't realize, like, they think that they're going to buy this $3,000 instrument and that's it. No. You end up having to buy the $2,500 laptop, the $800 per probably every 6 months of software. I mean,
it never ends.
It never ends. You're always going to be putting money into it.
Never ends.
But they don't assess that cost. They think that they just have this one-stop shop.
And the continuing ed that goes along with it.
Absolutely.
You know?
I mean, when I went and got my Pro Tools certification when I was at Berkeley, I had to pay extra for that. Not just, that wasn't a college course. I had to pay for that.
Right.
You know, or when I became an Apple developer, I had to pay for that. You know, it comes out of your pocket, but it helps you further along things. It may not be anything that makes you money. Like the fact that I know how to work on and look through Apple computers, does it make me money? No. But it helps me when I have a problem and I have to pay somebody else to do it. So, I mean, like, it's one of those things. And it's risk analysis. And nowadays, and it's my biggest thing, how can you make it work with risk analysis? If it does go wrong, what's your plan? Because a lot of people, when it gets bad, they want to quit. Or they're saying, this is not it. And that's where those people crush their drive and they crush their dreams. They go get the 9 to 5, which I've done. I've done that before. I actually just left my 9 to 5. What, you saw the post on Facebook, 2 weeks ago?
I don't think I saw it. I had no idea.
Yeah.
Because you and I are both so entrepreneurial anyway. Right. I never even would have thought.
Right. So I crushed everything. Like, so right after I got out of college, I put music down. I didn't touch a guitar.
Wow.
For almost a year and a half, almost 2 years, I didn't play. I put things in road cases. I put things in and didn't touch it.
This must have been when I was in New York.
It was. Like, it was about 2015-ish.
Yep, that was right when I was in the thick of it.
So I put music down. I was burnt out.
Yeah.
And I think it was also all those years of people saying you can't do it. That was right after somebody told me they wouldn't recommend me for my master's. So I just put it down. I didn't play. Jeez. Went in the sales world. I sold funeral supplies for a while, you know.
I could see you being a good salesman, though.
Well, I mean, it's what musicians do. We're salesmen. We have to sell ourselves.
Right.
So I went into this and I didn't pick up a guitar. People knew I still played, but I didn't make a big deal out of it. But it taught me being humble, because the less I talked about music and the less people knew I played, the more it made me feel inside like people need to know I play. But it was a thing you had to suppress because you didn't do it.
Right.
When you come out of these big music schools and you're like, man, I could do this. It almost is an ego thing. Mm-hmm. You get it built up so high.
Yeah.
You got to bring it back down.
Yeah.
And that's what did it. And I think I had a friend who had like a party or something like that. I was like, you bring your guitar. No, I'm not playing. I gave it up.
Right.
So I ended up taking a old acoustic guitar with like rusted strings because I wanted to appease a friend, but I knew I wasn't going to pick it up and play. I ended up playing that night. And I sat there and thought to myself, why did I ever quit doing this? It was like that quick, and I didn't even play anything but chords, like simple root position chords you learn as a kid.
Yeah.
Why did I ever quit? You know, then that kind of slowly started to build me back.
Wow.
You know, like, okay, I'm going to practice a little bit more at the house. And I regret it because I was so rusty. Like my fingers could still do the movements, but they were tight and they didn't remember some things.
Man, good God.
And I had to like rebuild myself as a player for after a year and a half almost of not playing.
Dude, I can't even go 3 days without. I mean, I
touch a guitar.
Things start.
I touch a guitar every day now.
Yeah, you have to.
And I make a point, even if it's for 20 minutes. I touch a guitar every day.
You have to.
And it comes from me not touching it for a year. You know,
you don't know what you lose until it's gone.
You really
right?
don't.
I mean,
and you lose a part of yourself.
Oh, 100%.
And that's what made me slowly build back. I was still working retail stuff. I taught school for 3 years. I was a school teacher. I taught music in a school. I played more piano than I did guitar at that point.
Right. Was it high school? Or?
It was pre-K through 8th grade. I was teaching little kids.
Wow.
And I mean, like, but it got me back.
They must have loved you, though.
It was so much fun. I mean, like, I left for other reasons, but everything else was so much fun. But then after I left that, I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this music thing. Second time in my life I've tried. It failed miserably because I didn't plan for it. So it was always scraping for money or scraping for that gig. And I just started this Bearded Honeys project and scraping.
How long has Bearded Honeys been running for?
As of last week, a year.
Okay.
Still relatively fresh, but you know, scraping. And then I'm like, I got to find a job. I've got a house that I'm getting ready to move into, all this other stuff. And I went and worked for UPS because I thought like, oh, that's a company that's going to be good to me and I'm still going to be able to play on the weekends. So you become like the old school 45-year-old. Like I work a 9 to 5, but I'm a rock star on the weekend. I'm rock and rolling on the weekends, you know. And you know, UPS had its ups and downs and stuff as anything, but there was always that thing like, why am I not playing?
How long were you at UPS for?
Since May. It wasn't even that long.
Okay.
But that was like the thing where it gave.
Oh, this was
like
recent.
Yeah, this year. And like I just kept on going like, what is the thing missing? Like I'm making money, I'm paying my bills, I've got some good things going on, but I still feel empty.
There's a void.
There's a void. And finally one day I just said, I spent 3 weeks in front of an Excel spreadsheet doing the business thing. How much are my bills? How much do I make playing music? They matched. There was not much more for anything else at that point, but they matched.
Right. So just make the difference.
Make the difference doing something else, or pick up an extra gig or two, or try and grind a little bit more to have that extra money.
Yeah.
I went in the next day and quit. I put my 2 weeks notice in. I'm like, this is it. And that was the end of it. It was like the void filled instantly because you knew that at that point, 100% of your income was you being a musician. You're on your path. I'm teaching lessons at a local store. I only had 2 or 3 kids at that point. Unfortunately, for some circumstances, an instructor left. I picked up almost 40 some kids. And that was the moment. I found this out on Friday, by the way, like right after I talked to you about what time to be here.
Wow.
And then I started doing the math again, business stuff. I quadded my income just off that.
Jeez.
And it's almost like that thing that something tells you that that choice you just made was the choice this time.
Oh, yeah.
And now you're sitting there going, maybe it wasn't that it wasn't the right time before. But now that your mind's clear, your path is clear, and you've got a good sense about the business side of it behind you, that's it. You've made it.
Okay, so UPS was recent then.
Yeah, that was May. I mean,
then, so you're teaching.
I'm teaching, you know, a little bit on the side, still playing. Get this call like after I had quit UPS and was kind of worried about where's the next check going to come from, like all musicians do. And this came through, and I was like, I'm still going to be able to play full time. I'm still going to be able to run my business full time, and I could teach, and still have more free time to create and do things. Where else are you going to get that? You can't. As musicians and artists, we have the ultimate schedule because we work all the time, but we also have time to make for other things if we want to. Now, most of us, do we do that? No, we grind all the time. Yeah. I mean, that's what we do. Whether or not people see it or not, we're always doing something.
Always.
Whether or not I'm sitting on my phone emailing venues, or now they're using Facebook Messenger all the time for it, all the time you're grinding it out. So whether you're sitting in a bar with a bunch of buddies and everybody's saying, why are you on your phone? It's how I make my living. It's just like my mom's been a salesperson for 42 years. She stays on her cell phone constantly. you don't ever say a word because that's how she makes her money. You're not fully removed, you're partially removed for a couple minutes. But, you know, it's one of those things where people get used to in your friend circles, and it's kind of cool sitting there like you've always got to work. And you've always got work.
And it's funny because, like, for a while, you know, in certain circles, you won't get invited to things, but it's because they get, like, they assume that you're not going to be around. It's not
that they don't want you there. It's just they know you're working all the time.
It's just strange how that psychologically.
I've got such a great support system of like close friends that it doesn't matter if they know I've got a gig going on or not, that there's a group of us that get together every Saturday. Doesn't matter if we're playing or not or anything. They still let me know they're doing something, and if I want to come by, I can.
Right.
It's not even like they know I'm playing or they know I've got something else going on because I've told them or I've advertised it, of course, a million times for marketing, but they still ask. Those are the people that are like awesome because you're like, they know I'm busy, they know but they still take the 20 seconds to just be like, hey man, we're doing this tonight. You know, as a musician, that means the world, or, you know, because you're working all the time, you know, you can't go, but they still asked.
Yeah.
There's so many people that sometimes will forget to do that. And the other mentality is, how many people do you know in this world, business or not, work for Monday through Friday and then they live for Saturday, Sunday? I mean, that's a total Gary Vaynerchuk type thing to say because he says it all the time.
Gary V, man.
But Gary V, literally, biggest thing I take from him is one thing is you waste 5 days of the week. Those people that really waste those 5 days and they only have 2 days that they're enjoying themselves.
There's something not right.
No. And as a musician and knowing I made the right choice and doing the right things, Monday through Sunday now is work, but Monday through Sunday is also it. You don't wake up and say, oh, it's Monday. Like, it's Monday right now.
It's Monday. It's any other day.
I woke up early this morning, went and got coffee and drove here because it's like, I get to do this.
Yeah.
It's not just because I'm excited to see you. We haven't seen each other in years, but it's the process. It's always doing something for marketing or just trying to do anything.
What I like about this business is it's seamless. Absolutely. So there really is no such thing as
there's no weekend. We might have a down day, like you said earlier. You know, we might have a down day
or down afternoon or whatever, and it makes
you take really, those times when you appreciate it more. I mean, this past weekend I played Friday night, didn't get to sleep till probably 3 or 4 in the morning.
Yep.
Woke up, taught lessons all day on Saturday. Got home for 20 minutes. Packed up the gear I needed, changed clothes, took a shower, played another show, didn't get home till 1 a.m.
Yep.
You know, I mean, you've got 2 straight days where you're running probably off of 3 hours of sleep. And it gets hard sometimes when you're doing that constantly, but it's almost like you want that grind.
There's an adrenaline rush.
You're almost kind of like proud of yourself that, man, I'm doing all this and I've only got 3 hours of sleep in me. Now, you'll eventually crash.
Yeah.
Because you need to rest.
Yep.
But just for that little bit of period of time, you're like excited and almost pumped up because your adrenaline's running. You're like, I got this gig, crowd's great, everything's awesome. Sunday hits, you're done. I mean, you know, you have that down day where you've planned it because you knew you had what was going on before, and you still end up doing work on that day, whether it's just on the computer.
Yeah.
You know, but that's totally
it's apparent and it's clear to me that this is you had a God moment for sure.
Absolutely.
With all this and all the teaching 40-something students now because of the unfortunate situation that occurred with the other guy.
There's nothing else that can explain it.
No, that's just total divine intervention and answer.
You pray and think about a situation for so long and know that there's this one thing that's causing you to be different. Not just in your professional life, but in your whole entire life. There's a hole that people can see. You end up complaining more, you're more miserable. People actually get to the point where they're telling you you're being more, you know, angry or more depressed or anything like that, how you're coming off to them. The second that switches and you're still nervous, but you feel better, and then something like that, that's the only thing that can explain it.
For sure.
You know, I mean, we could do all the marketing and we could do all the promotions in the world for ourselves, but at the same time, when stuff like that happens, you know it's not you. And it's a huge deal. You know?
And there's really nothing you can do except follow the road.
Absolutely. No,
because you can't, like, once you have a taste of that new season, you have to try.
Plow through it. I mean, it's just like
you have to try.
I like using like anything in front. So you've got so many people nowadays that think like, here's a water bottle. We got this is Starbucks, you know, like here's a water bottle. I'm going to pay you for this water bottle, and I'm going to take it, and it's mine. Okay, I didn't make the water. I didn't bottle it. I didn't do anything. We're in such a consumer base that when people come to their life and think, oh, I can just pay for that, or I could just take that, or it could just be done like this. They don't sit there and cut through the woods, so to speak. They don't try and make their thing happen. They go to college, they get the degree, or they start a career and they get it. They work their tail off. They do everything they can, and then they still end up in the same place miserable. It's the easy road. You know, I take the Robert Frost poem a lot and say, you know, there's two road
less traveled.
Yeah, there's two roads in this wood. One is like clear and great, and it's a great path. One's not traveled at all, and it's hard. This way is going to seem very easy and very rewarding because it just comes to you. But are you happy at the end of it? Whereas this one, you got to cut through, you've got to walk through, you know, hills and everything else and make your own way. But at the end of it, don't you feel way more accomplished through all the hardships, or way more just driven to keep going? And that's where I tell people, is like, forge it or take a path. Either way, I don't down anybody for doing either way. For me, it's the forge part. If I'm not creating my own thing, and that's the artistry, if you're not creating your own thing and doing your own thing and like being uniquely yourself, then what are you doing?
Yeah.
I mean, the 9-to-5 office gig is not my thing. For a lot of people, they thrive on it. I don't. You know,
it's like it's not even a thought. You know, and it was, and even in retrospect, it's like, man, did I make a right decision by actually going to school for something that really is very 9-to-5 oriented? And it's like, well, yeah, because I can use it for my own.
I mean, look at
pursuits.
me. I mean, you know, and that's exactly how I felt. I went and got an MBA. I mean, that's like typical mid-level management to upper management in a 9-to-5 corporation, Fortune 100, 200, 500, whatever. That's not meant for people like us, in the sense. It can be, though, if we make it that way.
Well, let's talk about the PhD right now in progress. So that's for management.
So I'm doing it in management with a focus in 21st century finance.
Jeez.
It's just this long bloated term for basically saying I'm going to get a doctorate degree in business, you know, but it's specialized.
Wow.
But, you know, here's the thing. Most of the time in this...
When did you start this, by the way?
I started in a month. I haven't started yet.
Okay.
I got the acceptance and everything and doing the paperwork.
Congrats.
But going.
It's
Thanks,
great.
man. But, like, doing all this stuff, like, okay, I've got a master's in business. Part of it's the ego thing for me. I've been in school since I was 6 years old. So 20 years. I've accomplished this much thing. Why wouldn't I go the extra 5 years and go get the prefix in front of my name? You know, how cool is that in a way, even in yourself saying, like, I could put the word doctor in front of my name. So some of it's an ego trip thing.
Yeah.
But a lot of it's use. And especially in this.
Well, I mean, once you have that.
I mean, you can be a consultant. You can go do adjunct teaching, you know, whatever. But, I mean, my thing is this. And it's kind of what was said in, you know, my bio. Musicians, they don't know what to do with themselves most of the time. They get the money. It's either a side gig and they just use it for whatever they want. But they spend so much time learning and playing the instrument or singing or doing whatever else that when the money comes and they're cool, like, hey, I got paid for a gig. Like, this is awesome. What are they going to do with it? Are they going to put it back? Are they going to spend it? Are they going to buy a new piece of gear? You know, it just depends on what stage in life you are with it. For me, that's paying my bills. For some musicians who want to do that, I mean, I guarantee you can go to any college program in the world to a freshman and say, what do you want to do for a living? They're all going to say music. They're all going to say they want to be a performer or a producer or something along those lines. They don't take the business side. They don't take any of that. Why? Because that's the fun thing. That's the thing they see on TV and everything. But they spend 4 years teaching these kids how to play really well or produce really well. They don't teach them for 4 years, unless you're at a school like Berkeley with the program in it, how to survive.
I want to ask you that. This is just coming to mind, and I don't have it as a bullet point, but the emotional aspect of what we do, that's like, I'm just seeing like red flags in my brain as far as, luckily my undergraduate, the school that I went to, there were some courses that dabbled in that, whether it was philosophy or psychology 101 or just stuff, you know, that really makes you well-rounded. But shouldn't there be more emotional, intelligent
there should be
conversations?
There should be. I think that, you know, as musicians,
coping, dealing with life, like, why are we not, even in high school, man?
Well, you got to think, half the songs that you hear on the radio or have heard that are big or anything, like I think before this started, we were talking about the 80s power ballad thing. You know, all those songs, 99% of them was about heartbreak. It was a heartbreak tune. It was about something hitting you. Emotions.
Country and blues.
Country and blues, everything. I mean, it was meant out of a place of pain, suffering, heartbreak, wrench, all this stuff. Musicians at a point in their psyche, and I think it's interesting because I try and talk to psychology people about this. There's part of us that I think might be broken all the time.
You know what? That's probably one of the most profoundly accurate things I've heard.
I don't care how well
at this table.
I don't care how well we are and how happy we are or positive we can be. There is inherently something probably in every musician in some facet that's broken. But that's what makes us what we are. You know,
isn't it sick?
It's a sick thing, but I mean, it's what it is.
The negative just without it, you have no fuel.
I see. I'm a person that, okay, so emotional things like, you know, how many of us have gone through, you know, for musicians, a relationship or, you know, a bad business deal with a gig or losing a bandmate, or even if it's something as profound as losing somebody from this earth in your life that fuel you in a way. It helps you write a song. It helps you, you know, I got taught when I was younger, you know, when I was 16, 17, taking really intensive training for Berkeley, and there was a blues thing, and I was learning how to literally mimic blues things and just how to do it. My teacher looked at me and said, "You're going to have to think about the worst things you can while you play."
Wow.
Like the most powerful, depressing, harsh things. I said, "What do you mean?" He's like, "You're too young to really have had any of that." And I thought, he doesn't understand my life, all this stuff. But now you get it.
And there's also a processing. There's a process. So you have to be able to digest what's happened, because some things, some traumatic events, you don't even really get the revelation of meaning until years later.
Absolutely. I mean, and this is something that sounds, again, that sick, broken thing. Every time that I have any sections in what we do as a band, the first thing that goes through my head when I play is the technical aspect. What key am I in? What scales do I want to go?
I already see where you're going with this.
Okay, that's the first thing that goes through my head.
Now I already see where this is going.
Exactly.
And I like this.
The second I get that through my head, about 12 bars or so before that point where I have to take a lead, while I'm doing the stuff that's just methodical. The next thing that goes through my head after I figure out what I'm going to do, or my map, my roadmap, so to speak, I internalize and bring up either what I'm going through inside right then, that day, the weeks prior, anything in my, and it's like, it's almost, it fills your soul up for a second. And what you do is, instead of keeping that there like a lot of people can do if they don't have a release, that next 40 seconds or that next minute and a half is what that goes to. And it's almost kind of like you're using it as fuel, but you're also letting every single bit of it go. And that's what this is for a lot of us.
Wow.
It hits really hard when you say it that way.
Yeah.
But it's like you're taking all this, again, pain, suffering, and reliving it for a total of 15 seconds before you go and do something.
Isn't it weird how it's also the entertainment business, yet we're having this psychoanalysis and you're going through... There's so many layers.
There is, but the thing is that most people think that what we do, I get up on stage, I play a bunch of stuff I know, and I walk away and get paid for it. It is such a methodical and emotional experience. From the second you unload that gear to the second you plug in a PA to the second you touch and tune a guitar. It's more emotional and more powerful than most people realize if they don't do this for a living.
Right.
And I think any artist, it's like a painter will probably tell you, from choosing colors or the canvas they're painting on, or dancers or performers, any type. You know, anything they do is more emotional than what people think it is.
It's the whole event.
Absolutely.
It's everything.
And I think that's what makes music though, is that it's an event that we're giving them almost in a way a story from our past that they don't even know about, because they're hearing it. They're not hearing it through words. They're hearing it through song. So
for a little segue here, Bearded Honey's kind of a live outlet for you now for the last few years.
Yeah. I mean,
and this pertains to that. Tell me what's going on with...
Okay, so it's interesting story how this happened. I got called, and this is right when I was getting back into playing again. I got called from a buddy of mine, and he said, hey, I'm playing at this bar tonight. Will you come out? Because it's the closest they had played to us. So I went to this gig. He had a chick singer there that's still a dear friend of mine. He was playing with her, and they had another backup vocalist. And at that point, it just got to the point where she came up to me afterwards and said, thank you for coming. She's like, I hear you play guitar. Like, yeah, I do. You know, I've done this type of stuff. Not going into detail because you don't want to sound pompous. You know, you don't. You know, when you get the fortunate aspects to be involved in so much stuff, you don't want to sound pompous when you're talking to somebody. I've got this.
It's a fine line.
Yeah, I've got this gig in 2 months. We're gonna do full band. I need an electric guitar player to play lead. Here's my number. Never thought I'd get a phone call. You know, it was just one of those like, okay, made a new contact.
Yeah, networking.
I got a phone call. You can come practice. Want to see what you do. Played the gig, got paid. Figured that was the end of it.
Right.
Lexington Barbecue Festival was coming up. So big deal in North Carolina, like the biggest thing. She was playing it. She needed an electric guitar player again. So I got to go out and play the barbecue festival thinking, this is a pretty big event, you know, probably 400 or 500 people there. Yeah, at the stage area. You don't think about the 10,000 people walking behind it still listening to you play.
Right.
And you don't even notice it until the video comes out and you're like, whoa, that's a lot of people. But after that gig, she kind of looked at me and said, I want to bring you on full time. I do a lot of acoustic gigs that my friend who was playing and singing with her, we could use you to fill in a lot of space and make it fuller with 3 of us. So that became a big deal for a year or so. We were playing a lot. I mean, 2-3 times a week, a lot. But she ended up, she's an interior designer now. And so she wanted to go pursue that with another creative path. Hunter and I literally sat there and said, we need some money. So let's book some small bar gigs and play covers that we want to play and play some stuff we played with, you know, her. And here we are a year later, merchandise, playing,
cool,
you know, all this stuff. And it's cover music. I mean, we play a lot of his original music because I don't write lyrics. I refuse to. You don't want that. I mean, you know, if somebody comes to me with lyrics and says, I wrote this, I can put enough music behind it to make it this big soundscape. But I can't write lyrics. So it became a thing with him. He had his originals that, you know, he had done. So we use that as kind of a fueling point for us. We play country and classic rock covers all the time. I'm getting to learn these songs I've always wanted to learn and get paid for it. You know, my creative stuff and everything, that's why I was saying about these guitar solos and the emotion. I put all my emotion and creativity into that now. I still write on my own for myself.
Well, I was going to bring up Endless Spaces, Endless Voices.
That was an interesting time. For sure.
And that's an all instrumental.
Old. I mean, we're talking, it was finished in...
all instrumental.
All instrumental, yeah. There's
but
no
old in the sense of discography because...
Yeah, it's 2013. I mean, we're sitting there almost 7 years
That was when my
out.
first album came out, so...
Yeah, I mean, and I only did one, and the reason I did it that way is, you know, Taylor Barefoot was who I was working with to do the album when we still lived in Boston.
So he did the production.
He did the production.
Sounds great.
He played a lot on it too, played a lot of the drums, played guitar with me, played the bass. You know, this whole entire album thing, it was Berkeley me is what I call it. Because that was almost at a peak of my playing in a sense. I think I've gotten a lot of that back now after spending years getting back to it. But it was almost right before I lost all of that. So it's interesting to go back for me and hear that stuff that I wrote and thought about and worked with him.
In the moment, like really in the thick of...
Right. And then you start looking at the album title and you're like... That kind of worked out for whatever happened in my life because that's what did happen. I lost a voice because I gave it up. But it's, again, Endless Voices. I got it back.
Right.
It didn't stop. It just muted.
Well, I have concept ? Inspiration ? But you kind of answered those questions.
Well, it was that. But, I mean, at the time, it was literally, I'm going to put out the best sounding thing I can do. The guitar playing may not be the most technical like I would want it to be. It was like a foray into ambient music as well too. I mean, there was a lot of soundscaping going on with it. And once it got done, you know, the first time I ever heard myself play and was kind of happy with it. And that's a rare thing.
It's a rare thing, man.
In our days where we can sit there and say, I'm happy with how something went.
Yeah.
Especially with ourselves.
Oh.
I can tell you how many places or times I've played anything. And I'm like, it sounded terrible. Then 99% that sounds great. what were you hearing? You know?
Right.
I totally flubbed that up, or it wasn't clean like I want.
It's strange how that works.
But we forget 90% of our audience isn't musicians.
Yeah.
You know, I grew up in an environment and was taught in an environment where I was playing the top level musicians all the time. So even the smallest mistake got picked up. Now I'm playing for a bunch of people who are just coming to hear the music who don't play instruments at all. And I forget that a lot.
And nothing can replace time. As far as, I mean, you know, time, obviously, like feel and groove, but that's not really what I mean. It's like the time on the instrument, because it just gets to a place where the 10,000 hours, once they're there, as long as you maintain it and you're living life, you're going to constantly be inspired.
You're going to be inspired. I mean, it's like I've always said,
for newness.
I've always said, people at this point, I'm not interested in the guitar god anymore. The Yngwies, the Steve Vais, I love them all.
Well, you just realize they just have this God-given freakish wiring.
Right.
That if you put yourself in a room for 50 years, 12 hours a day, it may not even happen for you.
I mean, but I'm more concerned now in my development about the old man, and I use this analogy, the old man who sits on his front porch, who's been playing for 52 years, who's never taken a lesson in his life and taught himself how to play blues on the acoustic guitar. That tone, that feel, that experience cannot be replicated at all. I'm more interested in how that process happened now.
Wow.
Because I know the technique behind it. I can play exactly what he's playing, but the years under that person's fingers, the years under that thought process, and even the emotional things that come behind that are so much more well-developed than my own. That guy who literally came to your local guitar store and talked you up and annoyed you when you were a kid becomes your biggest inspiration. Because you kind of like, I want to sound like that. I mean, people like Stevie did it early on, and just, again, a God-given like understanding of tone. But most of the time, it's those 50 to 60-year-old guys who literally play acoustic blues, and you just hear it, and it cuts you. I mean, music that I listen to now, even on not what I'm learning to play, but just for me, it's almost like everything has to cut me deep to inspire me now. And it's the simple things that are cutting me deep now. I mean, I can still listen to all the stuff I've always listened to, but you hear old, especially vinyl recordings of stuff. Mm-hmm. Go back to like those early Sun Record vinyls.
I was just going to bring up Johnny Cash and Elvis. I was just going to
bring that up, and it's like, the Tennessee Three, you didn't have a drummer. You had Johnny playing acoustic, you had a guitar player, and you had a bass player playing upright. Yet you would have never thought in those recordings that there wasn't a drummer there because of how percussive or how much feel was in pain too. Johnny had so much pain.
His story, I didn't even realize the scope of what happened to him as a youth until a couple, like last week when we saw it on a documentary. I was like,
was that PBS documentary thing?
Yeah. Oh my God.
You listen to that, or you listen to anything about Hank Sr. or any of this stuff? These guys went through so much pain, and it translated to, and you start thinking like that translated. It's almost kind of like you want, like, man, where's that moment? You don't want that moment to happen, obviously, but
I had somebody else on here in one of the previous episodes, and we were talking about it, where I said that when I was younger, before I went through some really difficult times, like when I was in elementary school and whatever, I actually craved some sort of weird story, but I never knew what that meant until now in my life.
When things have happened.
And now I realize it was just some divine ordainment of like, I don't even know how to describe it. Look, it's just like the artist in you.
At the end of the day, we develop all differently. We all develop our artist side differently. We develop as people differently. It's what makes the world great and unique, and everything like that. But I remember before anything bad happened to me, most of the music I listened to was high energy, fast, speed, glitz and glamour, like fun stuff. Like, you got sitting there listening to Motley Crue. You don't care about any of the words or anything.
Girls.
You hear girls, or you hear Kickstart My Heart and everything like that. And even
Bob Rock's production.
Exactly.
And
you just hear that, and it's high energy, and it's like party music.
Yeah.
And then you get to be in your 20s and stuff has kind of started to happen, or for some people, a lot has happened at that point. And then you hear something that came out years ago that you never even took thought in, and you hear Johnny Cash cover the 9 Inch Nails tune Hurt.
Oh my God.
And you listen to that song and it just hits you and it becomes something you want to hear. Or, you know, my other big person that covers music a lot, I mean, as much as there's been stuff surrounding his live shows lately, is Aaron Lewis.
Mm-hmm.
You listen to him take these older country tunes that these pop country guys have ripped off or they've taken and covered them, and they're all happy and everything like that, or they sound a little bit sweet. You hear him doing it, sounds like some old Hank ballad because of his voice the way it is.
Right.
And it cuts more.
Right.
That's the type of stuff I seek out. You know, it's like, that's what's going to hit me.
Yeah.
Because when I write music, it's not happy. It's not in the major keys.
Yeah.
It's not like some happy-go-lucky, you're going to put it in the car and go on a Sunday drive song. It's 3 o'clock in the morning, your girlfriend just broke up with you, and you were in a lot of feelings. Music that I write.
Right.
And it's all instrumental, so it means it's got to cut deeper. There's no words to hit you. You know, so it's like I've got to have this like structure that just you listen to and it just kind of makes you hurt a little bit. But I mean, like, that's the thing is, again, that one part in us that just hits a little differently than everybody else.
Nah, man, for sure.
I mean,
for sure. Did you ever listen to Typo Negative?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so like Peter Steele.
Yeah.
So I thought because he was a really sad guy.
Well, so was Wayne Static. I mean, Static X was the same way.
Yeah.
And it was in that general sense.
And me personally, like I said, you just go through things and life changes you, and it's good. It's all part of it.
Right.
I was definitely happier, I think, when I was younger.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean? But that's a lot. I mean, you got to be honest.
But then when we look back at it, though, did we feel happy when we were younger? We probably thought that was the worst moment that we had.
Right.
But now that we look back at it as an adult, you're thinking like,
because you
have perspective,
and you wouldn't change what happened.
I would never change a single thing that has ever happened to me. There was a couple years ago where I wish I would have made some different decisions.
Yeah.
What would have happened if I would have stayed in Boston a little longer? What would have happened if I would have taken that touring gig when I was 18? But then now that I think about it, it has completely shaped a drive that I would have never gotten, or it would have never made me quit music for a year, you know, and make me want to do it more. It would have made me not understand how I work as a musician and an artist unless I would have not gone through all that. So I wouldn't change a thing at this point. You know, sure, you wish some things like emotionally would go differently in your life, but it shapes who you are. It does everything you need it to do.
And the older you get, the more you realize just how much lack of control there is, if any control at all.
We have none. And that's my biggest problem in life, is I want so much control.
And
over
I really believe
things.
there are people that walk around thinking that they have control. And for me, with my life experiences,
you don't.
No.
You don't. And I think that, you know, even my pastor has said this to me before, even when we've had breakfast. My problem is there's so much in my life that I want tangible that I want to control it. And it's not even controlling in like this, I have to run the show thing, or I have to run this or run that. I want it to be calculatable. That's the business side of me coming out. I want it to be something that's a variable that I can throw into some type of equation or function or something.
And you get an outcome.
Yeah, that's not life.
No.
And the more I get older and the more things I go through, the realization is like, what, half the people now, it be like that sometimes. Half the people say that thing. It is. That's how it is. Things happen, good or bad, or neutral. Doesn't matter. It's how you get through it.
How you react, how you respond.
And that's, I think, the thing that can get missed sometimes.
And it's so crucial.
It's crucial how you react.
It's like, come on. It's like we can't even, you got a song here. You're trying to produce a vocal. It's like the most important part of the song, and nobody's like talking about the vocal. It's like the same thing, like this emotional aspect.
Well, it's like the thing that you want to see as an artist, the thing you want somebody to like, they like the completely opposite thing you never thought of.
Right.
Like you take this crucial, like I was playing Saturday night at this gig. First gig in a long time because there was 3 other people playing guitar in this gig. So there was 4 guitars going on.
Oh, jeez.
There's a lot of stuff going on,
Allman Brothers jam.
Exactly. I barely played lead that night. I literally played chords.
Sometimes you have those nights.
But I sat back there and like got in the pocket and just was smiling the whole time because it was something I don't get to do a lot.
Right.
But when you take how you react to it, there was one tune that like, it was one of ours because it was like a joint band thing. And I played like some bluegrassy flat picking thing on it that I always do, and not thinking about all the other people. They stepped back and let me do it because I just had already launched into it, and that's how I reacted. I wish somebody would have recorded that, because I distinctively can look back and how I even reacted to music. That was probably the best, most creative way I've ever played a flat picking run in my life.
Wow.
I wish somebody had a video of it. They don't. But it's all about reaction and action.
Another one will come around for you. Another 1,000.
Yeah, exactly.
I speak that.
In like 7 years, I'll call you and be like, hey, you know that moment I finally got it on video this time? But like, no, it is about action and reaction.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why I think music has changed into this thing where it's almost an expected reaction. You know, and you listen to the biggest one I'm going to use it because it's easy to, you know, tell people. You take Stairway to Heaven. It's a long song. It is a beautiful song. It's a forbidden song for guitar players when you don't play it. You can play it at home when you're alone and just kind of get away with it for a second. You know, but back then people were like, man, this is this long, like poetic thing and it's cool. But does it make you react? No, you have to listen to it a couple of times and hear the different layers. Music's been like that forever. You got to dissect a song multiple times. Past 20 years, we've been about the hook or that one chord or that one phrase that makes you feel something. I don't know if I'm about it. I don't know if that's a thing for me. Is that you turn on any pop tune, you've got the generic form, the ABA form with a bridge, and that bridge is the thing that's going to hit and bring you into the rest of it. I don't know if I like doing that. I like building this event because music for thousands of years has been an event. You know, in the 1700s, you had to go to hear music unless you played. Right. You know, 1800s, same way. And symphonies became a thing. And you just keep building, building, building. Unless you play an instrument for the longest time, you had to go see a band or a orchestra to get live music. And now we have people that can literally pick up their cell phone and pull up a streaming service. And they've got everything at their fingertips.
Could you imagine fighting a war without metal or rock and roll? And I mean, this is a serious question. I'm in the gym squatting 300 plus pounds. Right. I'm thinking to myself, I've got Rammstein right now.
Right. And it just pumps you up.
How were these guys fighting World War II without this music?
And they might have one record player in the whole camp, and it's probably some luau album from Hawaii. It's not some grinding, heavy thing.
It's just, it really makes you think. And I mean, there, of course, thousands and thousands of years.
But the music back then, and like that's what I'm kind of getting at, is like it hit differently with the same event. It's how the world's changed.
Right.
We want to hear somebody come out and play this giant thing and it be hooky and catchy, and that's what sells records now. But what sold records in the, let's say the late 70s, right? Or the early 70s. Janis Joplin's voice sold her records. That woman could sing.
That and the song.
It hit, and the song and the writing and everything. Yeah. Zeppelin, the persona, the mystique behind it. Why did metal become a thing? Because there was an air of like forbiddenness and an air of mystic behind it. Nowadays, there's no mystic in a lot of things. Like, I think everybody's enamored with like three people now, when back in the day, you'd be like looking at posters and you'd see the whole entire Rolling Stones thing or the Zeppelin thing or anything else like that. And it'd just be like, wonder how those people are. Now we have stuff like this where you know about it, which is awesome. But it also takes away some of the mystique sometimes. You know, in a situation like what we're doing right now, it's great because you're getting to know all this different stuff, hearing some good ideas, all this great stuff. But at the same time, none of my music's playing right now. There's still a mystique. You know, somebody could sit there after this and be like, this guy talks a lot, or he has all this stuff behind him.
Well, it's funny because everybody's like, oh, well, you know, you should maybe have some music on the Artist Lounge, whatever. And it's like, maybe at some point.
Right.
But right now, what I'm feeling is, and I'm just going by my gut feeling, talk.
Yeah.
Because if they want, they're going to go.
They're going to search me out after they see this.
I want the mystery.
Right.
And this is really interesting that you're bringing this up.
We lose with so much transparency in this world in anything, whether it be business, or whether it be relationships in your personal life, or whether it be music, if we don't have a little bit of mystique to it, what's the point anymore? The whole world knows about it, so it's not something that gets talked about. It's almost like it's like a rumors thing, which is why I think Fleetwood Mac titled that whole album that way. Take a rumor and spread it, whether it's good or bad,
and watch what happens.
It's like a wildfire.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you keep a little bit of mystique, a good mystique about yourself or how your band plays or your albums or anything, like this whole entire thing is right now, people are probably enamored, like, this guy's a musician. He surely doesn't talk like a normal musician, or like, he's done way too much stuff. Why is he not doing, all that stuff? But there's a mystique behind that. How could I sit there and talk about something psychological 1 minute, talk about spreadsheets next, and then talking about emotional strife and how I play guitar?
Starbucks water.
In Starbucks water. That's the thing. That's really interesting, but really, I got to go Google that guy.
Right.
I got to go to his website. I got to go find out where his music is or where they're playing next.
It's the beard.
It's the beard. But you've got all this stuff. And that's the greatest thing, I think, what you're saying about not playing music on this. They're going to search somebody out after this, or how many people?
Well, because without you, the music isn't there,
right?
So the music is just a channeling, or the art, and because we have artists of all kinds on here, it's just a channeling of expressions and emotions,
right? I mean, this is for you to show the people who we are behind all that.
Yeah, because everybody's killing themselves to try and get their content out there, and it's like, well, okay, great, but who are you?
I can literally take T-shirts, CDs. I could go home and make 1,000 copies of my CD. Okay, go take it to every bar in town and give it away to everybody in there. What is most of the there's most of the CDs you're going to be forgotten about. Maybe a couple get listened to. They won't remember who I am, what I looked like. They just be like, this dude gave me this CD. They don't know anything about me. And I think so many times we get frustrated as artists because nowadays people research their favorite musicians or their people. They know about their lives or stuff they went through. Or like you said, that PBS documentary about all these old country guys. It makes
Never
you
knew. Never knew.
But it makes you see a lot of things. It makes you almost appreciate things a little bit more.
Everything just like makes sense.
Absolutely. If people took more time, I mean, I urge everybody who watches this to do one thing the next time they go see a live show where the musician is accessible. You go to your local bar or your local venue and the band comes down and they go to the bar to get a drink. I'm not asking you to buy them a drink or anything. Try and approach them and don't ask them about the show. Ask them about themselves in a way, because that's almost a bigger compliment, I think, to a musician than music. You know, how many times do you think these famous guitar players that only guitar nerds know about, like, walk up
Richie Kotzen?
Oh, dude, the telly
isn't that stupid?
Thing. But no, that's the thing. Is like you geek out, and as musicians we geek out. And I can't tell you how many times I've gone to a show, and before I even talk to the band, I'm looking at the amps and the pedal board,
right?
Because I want to see what's going on,
right?
But it's like this thing we do. We're friends, whatever. Take time to go to your musician that you can be going to and accessible. Talk to them about them. You might start a friendship that you, one, never even knew you were going to have, but two, you might understand their music 10 times more because you took a 10-minute conversation with them. And I think that's something that gets lost nowadays. I mean, granted, you're not going to be able to go to PNC and see whomever who's massive and we'll walk in the back like, I just want to have a conversation with this person. It's not going to happen. But when you have a musician that's accessible or that's cool enough to be amongst the people, talk to them for 10 minutes, but not about the show.
Yeah.
Talk to them about what else is going on, or, not even their personal life, just what they like to do. Like, I used to go up to people and say, what's your favorite color? It's like the old bad pickup line thing. For musicians, especially, what's your favorite color? Because I see your guitar is this color.
What is your favorite color?
Purple. Like dark royal purple is my favorite thing.
Cool.
But, that's the thing is like something so stupid like that can start a lifelong relationship and friendship.
It's a really interesting way of looking at it.
It's just like with you and I. We started talking just because we were on a tour together.
Just there,
Right. We were on a college tour together, and it's been 9 years, but we've talked on and off over the years.
It's so weird. It's almost like nothing's changed.
Exactly. Yeah. But that one conversation made a long-term friendship, artist relationship thing, everything.
Right.
The tour was 25 minutes.
Yeah.
So if you take that short of a time with somebody, and like for your local musician, One, I do that to everybody I can, because I know that if I talk to that person, chances of them coming back to see us anywhere we are, they'll come.
One person at a time, one fan at a time.
We're so big on, Instagram is a big platform for me, of course, as an individual.
You and I both.
But, I think I probably got like 2,000 followers, something under that or close to it. How many of those people do I connect with other than just posting content? It's hard to, because unless they like your content and you can start a comment thread on it, you can't connect with them really unless you reach out.
Well, it's the nature of, screen
Social
to screen.
media.
It's just, did you see, I'll have to share this with you. I shared it from somebody else's page.
Right.
An artist recently, photographer, took pictures and took the phone. So is that
I saw that, yeah.
Wasn't that nuts?
Crazy how much you could see a couple laying in a bed and they're both like this and there's nothing there. They're completely devoid
Gives
of
you
their
the
life.
chills, man. It's a little creepy.
It's crazy, but
creepy.
It's the same thing about cutting certain things and using certain things. My biggest example is this. I'm going to give a shout out real quick to a band that's from Virginia. They're awesome. It's called Carbon Leaf.
Cool.
They've been around forever. They used to be in like the 90s scene. They still play, but their record company cut them because they were not playing enough because they all have kids and are doing everything else. They did a crowdfunding campaign, which is a great thing to do if you do it right, to fund their last couple albums. They're still touring. They're doing better without the label than they are with the label.
Doesn't surprise me.
But it's about making one-on-one connection.
That's it.
I don't care if I can go talk to 10 people at once. It's still not going to mean as much as you and I talking right now.
Yep.
Or somebody coming up to me and saying, even if it's something like, what's your favorite color? My favorite color is purple. That's why my strap on my guitar is purple, or yada yada. That's why I have this purple setting here or something. Or that the biggest influence in my whole entire music career is still associated with the color purple, and that's Prince. I mean, like...
Well, I was just going to, even before you're going to say Prince, I was going to say, well, Purple Rain.
Prince is my thing. I have a purple telly that I play. Its name is Prince.
That's awesome.
I've had all these influences in my life. And, I've read books about Prince. I've done all this stuff. He was an elusive, mysterious guy.
Oh, that guy was...
And he was so... But the thing he lacked, I think, and it's even me saying my favorite person lacked something, was personal connection with people. He achieved this status. There's the old stories that he wouldn't even let his guitar techs look him in the face. Where could you get to that point in life where you couldn't... that would be my best friend if I was on tour, was my guitar tech.
Man, that's strange.
But it builds that mystique, but it's also something that's driven me to appreciate a musician so much, and that a lot of my stuff's based around it, but to divert from that and forge something saying that maybe the personal relationship's the most important thing. With a fan, with another musician, I'm all about musicians not tearing each other down on the local scene, because that makes it all bad for all of us.
It's horrible.
It is. And I think, the thing is that how many bands play in a square 10 miles? I hope that when we play, that there's at least 3 bands. I really do. I hope that there's 3 bands playing the same night we are in the same place. Because if I don't have that, then nobody will be out, period.
Right.
The possibility of having 3 bands, each band brings 30 people. That's 60 people counting us that's out that night. Bands start at different times, do different things. They'll hop.
Yeah.
They'll go see all 3. And that's what I want. Means the bar's making money. Means we're making money. Means they'll ask us back. Means that there's people. So more musicians playing and more people playing and moving around is better for the business. Contrary to belief saying, I want all the music gigs.
Let me ask you this real quick as you reset.
Yeah, reset here for a second.
Reset. While we're on the experience, the live setting experience, I have worst gig experience, best gig experience. If you could just expand
worst gig
fairly
experience.
Quickly on those.
Worst gig experience in my whole entire life, still to this day, is I was 14 years old. Church thing. I put together this ragtag. All my musician friends were older and in their 20s. I was 14. We played 3 Van Halen covers, and I sang. It's when I learned I was never going to be a vocalist, because I froze. Worst thing ever in my life as a musician. Or being a solo classical guitar player. That also ranks up there. Because I was classically trained as well through high school and a little bit of college. It is the scariest thing in the world. I could play solo chord melodies for jazz all day long because there's a groove, and I'm like, but being so naked in front of people like that with just a classical guitar for the longest time was the worst gig experience for me because it was scary. So those are my worst ones. Best gig experience, there's a couple. The barbecue festival ranks high for me just because of how fun it was. There's videos of it on YouTube if you want to look it up.
Yeah. We'll put the link in the description box.
It's a cool little video, simple live video, but it was fun. The amount of people was fun. Actually, last Friday night was an amazing gig experience. When you have 300 some people fluxing in and out of a bar that's probably no bigger than the room we're in right now, and we're outside in the back parking lot.
Those are always fantastic.
We do this thing where depending on the age of the crowd, we'll throw certain songs in. Hunter has a wireless mic, and he'll go out and walk through the crowd. So he was walking through the crowd. We do an acoustic version of Billie Jean.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
And so he's like walking through the crowd, singing to whoever he can find, sitting in seats beside people, going everything. Halfway through, like right at the end section, I'm yelling at him, trying to get his attention while he's singing, saying, "Stay down there." And I just kept on pointing and like trying to still play guitar because I'm the only one playing, saying, "Stay down there."
Right.
He started to hop up and I said, "Stay down there."
Down, damn it.
He knew exactly what I was doing. And it's because there was enough people in that 35 and under bracket that would appreciate it. We always throw in "I Want It That Way" by the Backstreet Boys.
Yeah.
We do a version of it and he goes around and like croons the crowd pretty much. But things like that where that actually works and there's that many people and they're singing into the mic. It's the closest thing in a local setting you're going to get to being in an arena and somebody singing your music back to you.
And it enhances this experience for everybody else.
Live music shouldn't just be you sit there, stand there, drink a beer and watch a band. It should be interactive. It should be something engaging. You know, that's why
there's a theater aspect to it.
It's why I never got into the jam band scene.
Me neither, man.
Because they just sat there and listened.
Me neither. I mean, maybe like if you're into LSD or something, but
I mean, those musicians are powerhouse musicians.
Oh yeah.
But I just can't, like, if I go to a rock show or I go to a country show, I want to be engaged. I want there to be something cool going on, not just the flames and the pictures. I just want something cool to be going on.
Well, to me, it's all about the experience, and everybody has like a different. They have different criteria that need to be met. That needs to be met for that experience. But for me, it's like musicianship, obviously number one. Yeah. I can't be bored. Then there's the whole production, the songs, all of that.
You know, it's like my biggest concert like that I've gone to that I've been disappointed was actually here in Raleigh. It was 2013. I went to see Billy Joel at PNC.
Really?
Yeah. And the reason I say it was disappointing for me is because as a Billy Joel person, I love Billy Joel, love Elton John too. You and I both,
man, grew up with him.
I mean, you're a New York guy too, so it also hits even closer there. He's quintessential New York.
Huge influence for me. Huge.
But the whole entire gig, he's playing all these songs and like he's playing all the stuff that I want to hear. And it's hard as an artist like that, I know probably, that you have such a big catalog, you have to cycle through it.
Oh, tough.
He didn't play New York State of Mind and it killed me. And I left that show, regardless of how good everything else was, a little hurt.
Yeah.
Because that was like, that's not even a small song for him. And I'm like, really?
I think it might be smaller than you think, though.
It might be.
Because, look, he's in North Carolina, man.
He's not going to play it. I'm not seeing him, at Madison Square Garden or anything like that. I get it. But
that's a great song, man.
It is.
And
that's how much it is to the individual, too.
Well, I lived on that train for years. I still do when I'm in New York. I take that train.
You take it, but I mean, it means things different. But that's what the other thing is. It brings up, I've seen Bob Dylan. I didn't leave there going like, awesome, Bob Dylan. I left the show going, I just saw Bob Dylan. Like, it was like a thing. You don't leave excited, right? But I'm pretty sure like a lot of people be like, man, that was the most amazing experience.
It just depends on the person, and
now I will say the only person I've ever seen like that, and you were saying good and best experiences, like my most heartbreaking was that Billy Joel moment. My biggest and most, and it probably will never be topped in my life for a live show. I did get to see Prince before he died.
Oh my God.
I saw him in 2011 in Greensboro. And it was 3.5 hours. He went over of just, you can't explain it.
Yeah.
I mean, when you actually hear some of those songs live, it changes the world. I think I cried when he actually played Purple Rain.
Wow.
I think because I just stopped.
Wow.
And I mean, like, you want to talk about individual experiences? I think that might be the only person that if anybody ever went and saw him, they'd never leave upset. When you have a MIDI keyboard set up and each key is programmed to play 45-second snippets of your catalog so you can cycle through at least a chorus of every one of your songs, that's what he did for 25 minutes.
Holy crap.
I mean, but his tagline was, I wrote all the hits, you're going to hear them all right now. A very cocky mentality.
That's great.
But for him to do that is like the most incredible thing. And so I've always taken these showmanship things from that moment.
Yeah.
It's like, if we play a live gig, I want the in-between moments. I always ask if I could have control of the music in between us when we take a set break.
Right.
Because I'm going to keep people there.
Yeah.
I'm going to make it a full-fledged experience. I'm sitting there playing the Cupid Shuffle halfway through our gig the other night because it kept 25 people in front of me dancing, and they didn't leave. It's about showmanship and about keeping people there. I mean, that's it. I mean, we lose that, and it's also the emotional. It ties everything we've talked about today into it. We're performers. In a way, we are salesmen. We are selling ourselves each second that we're alive because that's how we make our money. But that doesn't mean it has to be miserable.
Right.
We could have so much fun with that. Regardless of all the deep emotional stuff or anything else or how we think, always can be something based in like having fun. Because that's why we got into this in the first place. You know, being a guitar player was never about, at first, I'm going to make a living out of this. It was always, this is fun. I'm playing some songs I like.
It's just, yeah, the feeling, you know.
We lose it. I think more and more.
Absolutely, you can, yeah.
And I've lost it once. I'm not going to lose why I love doing it again. It's not just the money aspect or the playing aspect or that it's my job thing. Because it is kind of cool when people say, what do you do for a living? I work at a bank. What do you do? I'm a professional musician.
See, it's funny because when people ask me that, I don't even know what to say half the time because it's
I proudly say it.
It's like...
You don't... I kind of
You know what I mean? Like,
you know, you especially if you have, like, especially your parents' friends, and they come to you and they're like, what do you do for a living? And you say, I'm a professional musician. They immediately have like flashes in their head about how much you probably messed up in your life. And that's the only thing you're, you know, like the old school mentality on it. But, you know, at the same time, I almost couple it saying I'm a professional musician and a business owner because I run this.
That's the only way I can say it. You know, I'm an artist and an actor and I own my own production company.
Correct.
Because if you put that on the end, then the conversation changes.
It does. I mean, it changes.
And I hate saying that, but there's a stigma there.
I think more artists have that stigma. I do as well. I've learned to teach myself sometimes to almost leave the business part of it out and take that risk and say the musician thing. Because if there's so many guys I know that play that'll say they're 9 to 5 first, which that's their 9 to 5 job, cool. But they have a part-time job and trying to do the half and half thing. They still say the part-time job. Even if they're making more money or in the psyche way as a musician, they don't claim it because it's almost kind of like it makes you seem like you failed or that you've not done as good as you could.
Right.
If I urge anything in any field of artistry, whether it be music, art, performing, act, I don't care, whatever it is, be proud of it.
Right.
And sometimes we shy away from being so proud of what we do because we're scared of what other people will think. If we got into this business because we're going to be scared of what other people think of us, we'd be in the wrong business.
Mm-hmm.
We put ourselves on the line to be commented on, ridiculed, you know, basically, for lack of a better word, talk crap about.
It was like Ariana said, the 99%. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah,
bit.
I did. And, you know, and she's absolutely correct.
The 99% for the one.
And you know what? I would much rather be that 1%.
Yep.
I would much rather be the person that, I don't care if you think it's weird I'm wearing a camo shirt today or the fact that, you know what, I've got shiny jewelry on or any of this stuff. That stuff has never mattered to me because it's just me being who I am. When people always ask me, what's your biggest strength? And I'm like, I don't care. I don't care what
There's
people
so
think.
much strength in not caring.
I don't care what. Now, it does hurt more when the 10% of the world you do care about hurts you.
Right.
because that's the only thing you do care about, or the 10% of stuff you do.
Yeah.
But when you have so much power, and like she said, the 99-1, I use it in this way, 90-10. I don't care about, I try not to care about 90% of the things that I do or stuff that happens to me, because the 10% of things make up for all the other 90.
It's really interesting. Like I'm definitely in a season where I'm seeing more and more and more how vital it is to take every single negative occurrence and you have to flip it as an opportunity.
Absolutely. I mean,
to do something.
There's some negative things that we will go through in life, which, you know, whether that be health problems, whether that be anything. I know you and I both have our experience with health things. You know, those are rough, and they change a lot of how you act, think, and are as a human physically.
Yep.
But if we don't take that experience or time we get from that or anything and spin it, you know, we can't do it right. Or, you know, bad comments about your content or your music. You know, there's a lot of musicians who take really to heart when somebody says their song sucks. Maybe it does, and you just don't want to hear it, and you know it. Or maybe that person's just being a troll.
Right.
You have to decide that for yourself.
Right.
You can't let one person derail your entire operational thing. And I think so many of us as people, not just artists, but people in general, do that. So I try not to.
It's amazing the mind games, isn't it?
Everything about this is a mind game.
You could have 1,000 positives, and it's just that it's like in the studio, right? Or in the recording world, you got 1,000 notes that are great,
right?
But you're slaving over the 2 that are wrong, or the one that's
or
wrong,
that one track that might have a little bit too much compression, but everything else is perfect, and it's just your mind messing with it. 90% of the world doesn't care. You do.
Right.
Sometimes we need to care a little bit less about the deep details of things and care about the things that matter. Like, okay, somebody making a comment about big picture. We're here for a long time. I don't care, you know, God willing, we're all here for a decent amount of time. You know, unfortunately, some things happen that cut things shorter for some, but if we don't live every day, you know, everybody wants to say live in the moment, you don't know if you're going to be here tomorrow.
It's a double-edged sword, that type of thinking.
I might get in my car to leave here today. God forbid something happened to me on the way home or anything. That could be it. I have to know that mentality in my heart and my head, knowing everything I say and do has to be for that moment. But I can't immediately assume that's going to happen either. I have to have a big picture plan. Because in this industry, or in being an artist, if you don't have a big picture plan, what are you aiming for? What's that thing that you're hungry for so much that you're going to push to get it? If you don't have that, then what are you working for? I don't know. For me, that's how I think. I know there's a lot of people that take a lot of process, don't have big picture, and they write or they paint, and then that leads them to the next. And the way I run, I can't do it.
Yeah.
I got to have big picture, and I got to have immediate picture. The medium stuff comes in and out as it is, but if I have that one set goal 5 years from now, or where I want to be in 5 years, what are my 4 steps at a time that I'm going to take to get to it? And that's how I do it. Four at a time. Weekly, bi-weekly, they just get replaced every time they're done. And
the list.
But instead of taking it at a big list, 4 things at a time.
That's it.
Because if you do any more than that, I don't care who you are, you're going to overwhelm yourself. So you still accomplish a 40-thing list within, 10 weeks at most? Or if you have to speed up, 10 days.
One day at a time.
One day at a time. That's how we do this.
One vocal phrase at a time. One verse. One word at a time.
One note. Anything.
That's all you can do.
One nail in the face. I mean, I still am enamored by that, and that's awesome.
Is that great?
It's so cool.
Is that great?
But it's almost,
she's like, I've got a nail and a hammer in my car, and I was like,
but I mean, like, I know we're even getting to the end of this, but it's almost the coolest thing is like it hits the nail on the head with all this stuff. I mean, as corny as that joke is and how awesome it is, it's just something that hits us.
Pun intended. Pun
intended, because the thing is that regardless of what we talked about, whether it be, you know, the psychological, anything, it hits the nail on the head. Because it's what we do and it's what we have to do to make this work for all of us. Yeah, pun totally intended on that. It was worth it.
Real quick, I want to, before we get to the shootout, coaching, consulting, if just a little bit on that.
So what I'm doing is I advertise it on my website. Any bands,
Description box,
individuals, any things like that basically need help. There's so many of us that do need help. I still need help and consult people, like call people I know. But I do a service where I will sit down and I will meet with the leader of whoever's in charge, or the whole band, or an individual. We'll just talk.
Yeah.
You know, we'll go have coffee, go have lunch. We're going to talk about the problems you're having, or if you think that, how am I going to market myself better? Why is this guitar player saying he needs more money because he puts more work in my band?
Wow.
You know, those things. Because the thing is,
that's good, man.
It's easy to navigate those things with a fresh set of eyes.
Yeah.
If you don't have a third party in there, you're going to have personal problems. People are going to lose friendships.
You're almost a mediator in a sense. Just
think of it as intervention for musicians. I mean, like, legitimately.
Wow.
I mean, you
may want to do something with that.
Well, I mean, the thing is, you take a group like that have been friends and started out as friends most of the time playing music. And in the middle of all that, somebody gets mad. Why?
The dynamic changes.
Oh, well, he took the chick I was trying to talk to that night at the gig, and they get mad.
There you go.
Why did he get a little bit more money than me this week? I tell them about how they need to parse out their money.
Right.
How they need to probably pay each other equally and ask for more money at a gig. If they're not going to pay more, then maybe you need to seek another outlet.
Or define the roles.
Exactly.
You know?
And so I do stuff with that, but it's also coaching and stuff, especially what I'm doing with this vlog thing I'm trying to get started.
Yeah, let's talk about the vlog too, real quick.
Okay, there's millions of gear reviews or stuff that people talk about on YouTube.
What's the name of the vlog?
I haven't come up with it yet. This is brand new.
Okay, so this is brand new.
I
had that as a bullet point here because I saw it.
Brand new. So then this is kind of where I was going to release the concept of it on this. I wanted to use this as like kind of releasing
absolutely,
thing.
Man.
You know, there's tons of gear videos for musicians out there, whether any instrument you play or anything. There's tons of how-tos. I mean, some dude wrote a book on how to get into Berklee and goes through the audition process 10 years ago. I never bought that book, by the way, but there's somebody who's making money off of that. Cool. I'm not doing this vlog thing for money. I'm literally taking this recent thing of I'm going to do this full time and documenting it. There will be 52 videos.
Cool.
One for every week.
For a year.
Snippets. That will be the first segment of the vlog is 52 videos, segments throughout the week. What am I doing? How am I keeping things straight? And it's not going to portray just happy.
It's everything. Encompass everything.
It's the bad, the good, everything behind it. Because the thing is that social media has also gotten us painted that so many people, and we only post good things sometimes.
Right.
I want to show people that if you do this, you are going to have that moment in your life where you crash. And I'm being vulnerable enough to say I'm going to allow you into my space when that happens.
This is great, man.
Because the thing is that this is not an easy road. As much as, everything sounds great on paper and it sounds like I got most of it figured out, there's a variable. There's always a variable as a musician.
Or 100.
Or 1,000. You know, it just depends. So I'm using this as like, okay, here's some gear that I think's cool. Like just to have some intermittent videos in there. Here's how it works. Here's how I'm using it in the studio. I might have like little jam snippets of people that I play around with that are other musicians that are cool. Like just your normal musician YouTube channel. But this vlog part of it's the center. What are you going to do to navigate if you're going to do this for your living? Doing the thing that colleges don't do.
Right.
Is educating a new musician or somebody who wants to get into this how to survive. It's almost like your survival guide for that first 52 weeks. And granted, everybody's situation will be different. But I guarantee you some of the struggles. I mean, I know people that have went to go be a musician, their girlfriend left them immediately because it wasn't favorable to say my boyfriend's a professional guitar player. That's heavy. You lose somebody that important in your life because you're going to be a musician and it's your dream. One, they probably didn't support you anyway because you're going to, they just be built up. But that's an emotional thing that people don't think about. Or like what happens that week where you have no money, your bills are paid, sure. You're eating ramen every night like you were in college. And some people have never had to do that. Some people have and still do it. But it's those small little nit things. Or, you know, I know plenty of people that have had enough gas to get to the gig and they're praying on the way home to get home because they don't have gas. It's a reality, and it's a hard reality. But I'm going to document any of this. Hopefully all those really, really bad things I can circumnavigate, but I know there's going to be some. That doesn't make me feel negative about it. That just makes me be like, it's something I can show somebody.
It's exciting, man.
It is, because I want to make sure that we are not a dying breed. I want to be able to show so many people that this is something we can do successfully over time, and we don't lose musicians, because we're losing them. Yeah. We're losing actual pure grown musicians. Whether anything you do, whether even you're doing the turntables and DJing or producing, beat making, guitar players, we're losing the craft. And I don't want it to be something that in my kids or my kids' lifetime that we lose something that we've held for how many thousands of years in the way that we have it. You know, classical music stood the test of time. It's still getting played, performed, everything. But are there people that are going to be able to play it? It's almost like a part of our world's history is going to go away if they don't. Well,
let me ask you this. I was going to ask this during the shootout, but now that it's coming up, future plans twofold for you.
Yeah.
You personally.
Okay.
And the world.
Okay.
Where are you? Let's say 5 to 10 years down the road, and then also music 20, 30 years down the road.
Okay. So me 20, 30 years down the road, or even 5 to 10, you know, I want to be able to keep this going. I want to grow it. You know, I've never gotten to the point where I've wanted to hire people. You know, some people who start a company or want to do something, they hire somebody. At this point, and whatever I've got planned, I could do it on my own. Will I get to the point where I'd like to be able to make enough money to pay myself and possibly a part-time person? Sure. But I want to keep growing this thing, whether it's just me playing, me doing the studio thing, me doing this vlog thing. I mean, definitely would like to see that grow. Other than that, I'm trying to become a better player now.
Cool.
And, you know, that's something
you and I both, man. Never ends.
It never ends, but I think there's so many people who get to a point, especially where we're at, that they say, I've got all I need. I'm just going to keep that up. It never stops for me. I want to always have something new and challenging to do. So being a better player for myself, you know, of course, you know, 5, 10 years, I'd like to have a wife and kids. You know, it's something everybody kind of wants at some point. But
sure.
We also are in a lifestyle that is hard for that. You know,
and as I get older myself, I realize that the unconventional calls for an unconventional partner, and an
somebody has got
way
to
of life.
Understand what we do.
The white picket fence thing.
It's been dead for 20 years anyway.
It's been dead.
You know,
and it's funny because it's just. Like the older I get, the more I realize like that's not even what I want.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I don't
like you want aspects of the grounded nature of that. But
I want to know how they came up with 2.5 kids. Like that was always a thing. 2 cars every year, 2.5 kid. I'm like, where's the 0.5 kid? We got half of a kid laying around somewhere. Like that's not what's going on. But no, that mentality takes somebody. Now, when it comes to like music in 20, 30 years,
what do you think?
I'm hoping for one thing. If you look at fashion right now, stuff is coming back from 30, 40 years ago. Like I know my parents' friends have said, I wore that in high school. Or that like the stuff's coming retro back. Why can't it happen with music?
I think it might be already.
But I think that with people, I mean, what's the guy's name? He plays blues music. Oh God.
Gary Clark?
Not Gary Clark, young guy. They did like a special on him.
How young?
He's probably in his 30s.
Oh, well, it's not Bonamassa.
No. It's younger than that. He's got the guitar with the blues flower plate on it. He plays like a Les Paul Custom. He's got a signature model. I'm trying to think of his name.
Oh, Jared James?
Yes. So that gives me hope.
Oh, that guy's a monster.
He's a monster, but he is somebody in his mid-30s that is sitting there going...
I thought he was in his 20s.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. But like, I'm giving it an even bigger bracket there.
Right.
You know, but he's powerhouse musician and he's playing blues music. He's playing blues rock.
Yeah.
That's coming back. I mean, as much as people may love or hate this other person who's a big influence type thing, you know, you got the John Mayer argument. You got people on two sides of it. You got the people who love his songs and his songwriting, and you got the people who actually went and paid money to see him live and heard him play guitar. He's a monster guitar player. If he could have spun it a different way with not being such a songwriter, he could have probably been the next guitar hero that brought guitar back. in my opinion.
I think he did. Well, I know he did because when we were both in high school, when Continuum came out.
But you heard Gravity, that opening like whole entire thing, it just spurred the guitar back.
Yeah.
I think more stuff happening like that is going to be a big difference in whether or not we lose actual instruments fully or not.
Well, and again, it's like my whole mantra is songs with some intricacies and some parts.
I hope, and the other thing I hope encompassing that with not just the building more musicians, but also I want there to be a point where we stop writing music to sell it.
Yeah.
And that's a hard thing to say in a consumer-based industry where that's our living. But stop writing music to sell it and start writing music to preach it again. And
that's why I brought up Peter Steele and Type O earlier, because he, even in his most despondent, despair-esque writing,
right,
he always wanted it to be accessible and sellable,
right,
for the fans, because you can go down the rabbit holes all day long of you
can, but I look at people like this, and they're two like newer country guys that are out there, and they do stuff that Jason Isbell is one killer band, like stuff you wouldn't see. It's almost like Alison Krauss, all those years ago coming out like that with Union Station. But there's a guy, Tyler Childers, is writing a lot of good powerhouse music that preaches to people,
right?
But it's selling,
right?
And I think that's the new formula. Examine what's going on in your communities, examine what's going on in this crazy world we live in, and see how it affects you and write it. At that point, your music will sell itself if you put your heart into it and you're doing what you can do to make it the best sounding thing. But don't just write a catchy hook to sell it, because you're getting rid of the whole point of why we do this.
I couldn't do it.
I would never do it.
Yeah.
Now in cover music with what we do with the beer, there's stuff I will play that I don't like to play because it makes people happy.
Right.
But in turn, seeing a crowd react to it makes me feel good.
Yeah.
But when it comes to my own music and stuff like that, which is why I keep it very private a lot of the times, is because it's something that hits me. But there's there's very few people that understand instrumental full music in a way that musicians do. It would be musicians' music pretty much. It's not meant for the top 40 consumption.
Yeah, I mean, it's the worst thing in the world is creative compromise.
Exactly.
And I mean, inevitably there's going to be that to a certain degree.
To an extent, but I hope these new artists, like I said, they stop making music to sell and they make it to preach. And I think that you will see a lot of younger people doing this, especially with how vocal this generation coming up has been.
Right.
Now, whether or not the content's something, it just depends. But I hope that that's what happens. We need more Bob Dylans and Bob Marleys right now.
Right.
Than we ever have. Somebody who's going to preach through their music.
That's very well said.
Yeah, we need more Bobs. That's
awesome.
the way I'm saying it is. Those are two people that started, whether or not it was political or not, but revolutions through their music, and that gives you the same thing that one person did make a difference through music.
Yeah.
Why aren't we doing that now again? People still talk about the people, like I've mentioned throughout this whole thing, the Janis Joplins, the Robert Plants, the Jimmy Pages. People still talk about those people.
40, 50 years out.
How many people still talk about Jimmy and how short he was with us with Hendrix? I mean, Big Deal died young. Jim Morrison is another one.
Yep.
But they played to preach. They didn't play to sell. And
somehow they sold.
I mean, look at Queen. I mean, that movie that came out, as much as some of it may have been flawed.
One of the greatest films of all time.
I mean,
hands down.
But here's the thing. You didn't just see, and this ties everything you didn't just see the music. You saw Freddie's mental collapse. You saw Freddie's everything that he went through. That's what people need to feel when we do something. It makes you tear up at the end when they do the Live Aid scene.
Because what kills me is with the kid in the hallway.
Yeah.
That to me is the greatest scene in the whole movie. That 20-second bit.
But you see him looking across that piano before he starts and sees those people. It makes you feel. I'm getting goosebumps right now talking about it because that's what we do. Regardless of anything else, bad choices, good choices, pain, anything. It's that moment. We live for those moments, and we translate those moments.
The 1%.
again.
All right, man. So let's do the shootout.
All right, let's do it.
So, guitar.
Okay. What about it? What you need?
First thing that comes to mind for you, guitar.
Telly. So Telecaster comes in my mind as soon as
Cool.
you say guitar.
Cool. Amp.
Oh, Dumble.
Oh!
First thing you're going to say, and I say amp, it comes to my head's Dumble, man.
Oh, my God. Dude, we're like done after that. That's
First thing you say, amp,
man,
Dumble.
He's just bringing out the... Jeez, he's bringing out the big guns today. Mic on cab.
SM57.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah,
There's
that's
no
it.
other thing, man.
That's it. Vocal mic.
SM58 for live stuff.
Okay.
I mean,
Studio? Still could.
I could, but at the same time, like, I'm going to have to go with like a Neumann.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have the money for it, get it.
Yeah,
but
of course.
I mean, studio mic Neumann. If you have
What series as far as
just anything,
any Neumann?
Any of it could be a good vocal mic if you do it right.
Yep.
But no, I mean, SM58s are just kind of the thing, the standard.
Reverb.
Love it.
Delay.
DD3.
Okay.
Always will be.
Okay.
I don't even use one right now, but I'm still going to say DD3 because
Right.
that's like the classic.
Drums.
Ooh. I'm going to have to say Ludwig.
Yeah.
Bonham played them, man.
I'm not gonna. I was gonna say Zeppelin, and
Yeah.
I'm not gonna argue with that. Bass.
Modulus.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I wasn't expecting that.
Going boutique-y on it. You know,
Wasn't
Modulus.
expecting that one at all. Keys.
Oh, Roland.
Yeah. You and I both.
Unless it's synth and it's Korg.
Distortion.
Amp. I hate OD pedals.
You and I both. You and I both, man. Compression.
Ooh, because I use it so much.
You and I both.
Cali.
Again.
The Cali 76.
Okay.
The Origin Effects one. It's like the greatest thing on the market right now.
As far as, well, you're talking about pedals.
Yeah.
Then. Okay. Because I don't use compression on pedals at all.
Oh, I do.
So
all the time.
I was talking about studio.
Oh, I use it for a studio pedal too.
I'm sure you do.
I will patch it in through a patch bay and turn it on.
Yeah.
And use the guitar pedal for because that's the greatest thing about new guitar stuff is that it is basically studio grade stuff.
It's like
in a
outboard
box.
gear and a little
And I get to use it at every
stomp box.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, that's cool, man. Master bus.
Oh.
We're almost done. We're almost done.
Killing me,
Yeah.
man.
No, this is why we do this. And you know it wasn't going to be easy on you.
I know you weren't going to be, but
Mr.
Bus.
Berkeley, multi-master degree,
but like
doctorate starting.
I don't even know what I'm gonna like. I can tell you what I use for a master bus.
Go ahead.
An HX Stomp. You're gonna kill me for that.
Ah.
Because I run it out and run everything through it and patch everything through that.
Wow.
Because I could use different amp models through it and it fits on the desk.
Right.
So you're like everybody thinks I'm crazy, but I have gotten so used to what we're doing with me only taking a pedal board to a gig and running it through a PA. And even on the bus channels on the PA, I run it through it.
Now, how about studio? Like, just recording in general, like any favorite master bus processings?
Anything with Universal Audio on the thing.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
I mean, they are exclusively making some of the best things out there.
Yeah.
And a lot of them affordable, like the Apollo Twin, like what, $600? But it makes it like the greatest thing. It's versatile. It's still not basically your preamps and everything else that you need, but it's great.
Effects.
I mean, all those were effects for me, right? All right, like one single effect that I couldn't live without, and we want to do it that way?
We can.
Compression.
Okay.
I use it so much.
So you'll pick compression over EQ any day?
Yeah, because if you compress it right, you don't have to EQ.
Unless it's just shit tone.
Yeah, but that's the point. You get a good amp and a good cable. You don't have that.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, let me put it this way. Let me give you like the ultimate scenario.
Well, I'm
here.
saying like even if there's no EQ options on the amp.
Oh, okay. So we're taking
Okay.
that out anyway.
Well, that's where I thought you were going with this.
No. What I'm saying is this. You take this is like perfect scenario. You take like in anybody's mind your dream amp. whether it be anything. Like I would love a super reverb, like a 61, 62, 412 super reverb, and equalize it out and be in a place where I could crank to where I get a little bit of grit just because it's so loud, and use the gain on the compressor where I'm not adding anything. It's just a clean boost. And that's all I'd need with a cable and a guitar.
Right.
And you could do magic things with that. So my thing is with that is I would use compression because you could do so much with it or take away so much from something. Because I play clean a lot of the time.
Well, let me tell you this. So here's the way I look at it. So I was doing Fender for years.
Right.
Over the last 5 years or so, it's been very Marshall.
Okay.
So JCM 800, 100 watt. Now this is just guitar. Like
right.
This is just, we're not like talking about all the other components of recording.
Oh, you're not talking about, this is just for guitar.
Well, because that's where in the vein of conversation where we are.
Yeah, absolutely.
The way I look at it is you've got tubes. Tubes cause saturation, distortion, whatever.
Correct.
So to me, that's the compression or limiting in itself because the tone changes. But I know for a fact that if the EQ isn't right,
you could change it.
Then you'll want to compress because the EQ, because there's just like balance things in the frequency spectrum that aren't happening.
See, for me, it's a sustained thing. It's not so much an EQ thing.
Okay, so and then sustained for me is also, my answer would be tubes.
Okay, so my thing is this. You take an EL34 amp. It's going to have a lot of compression in it because you're getting the more power output.
Right.
But how hard is it sometimes to get crystal? Like I'm talking like twin clean on certain things.
Well, with sustain, that's
not
without cranking the hell out of it.
So in those environments like we play in, to be able to, especially for me going through a PA especially, and not having that amp system in there, like legit, my pedal board that is everyday use is a DI box to go into a mic preamp because I refuse to put a 1/4 inch into it. Yeah, exactly. An HX Stomp is there. I use it for the IR, the impulse response, but I use it for the cabs. The cab and preamp simulation, so I actually get an amp tone out of it.
Right.
It's still not the real thing, but it's close enough for a PA. There is a reverb pedal that's the Strymon Flint, so it's a rotary sim and a reverb.
Cool.
And a wah pedal. I use that with an acoustic guitar too, by
the
way.
Yeah.
But inside that HX, there are 3 layers, and this is where you're saying EQ. I have 3 different types and 3 layers on every channel I use of compression. One that's foot switchable. The rest of them are built into it.
Cool.
Because it, like you said, you can get an EQ setting or anything comes from tubes, but if I don't have tubes behind me, I've got to simulate that. So if I take 2 different types of compression and one that I actually use for a spanky little rhythm thing, which is how I ended up getting into it so much, was that playing Motown and funk and getting into that. Those guys use compression like crazy. Like you listen to anything.
Oh yeah, of course.
But it added that tightness without having to be so tight with your right hand. But then when I started realizing how much sustain or even putting a compressor after a OD pedal or in a certain point of the amp chain and how much extra you get oomph if you turn it on. It's almost like a boost, but not a boost.
Yeah.
That's why it's become like the ultimate thing in whatever I do. There will always be a compressor in my rig somewhere. Yeah,
because it's like with the single coil through the Marshall, there's still, you crank it, you have your boost pedal when you're doing solos, and there's plenty there, but when you have a Les Paul going through a Marshall with the humbuckers, the sustain is, it's like Les Paul through a JCM 800. You don't need to, it just sustains all day long.
I'm primarily a telly player.
Right.
So, and that was a big shift switching in my life.
Yeah.
From being a big humbucker guy to being a traditional telly style guy.
Now, to me, being a drummer first, that's why I was gravitated towards Strats, was because I wanted more percussive. Even in my solos, I wanted more percussive because Stevie really didn't have much sustain on some of those first records until he started using the Marshall the Tube Screamer.
But if you pull back, especially on Fender things, that neck pickup selector, either on a telly or a Strat, that tone is the iconic tone for a good 70% of classic music. So why wouldn't you at least want to have something like that?
Right.
Now the Les Paul has its place in that too. But for a lot of that sweet sounding, versatile tone, it's a
Can't beat
Stratotelli all the time.
Can't beat that neck pickup.
Or for me
man.
doing country music, me flipping back to the bridge pickup on a flat plate telly.
Right.
And that quack it gets.
And the quack on position, I call it 4 out of 5. The one on the Strat,
yeah,
where I call it the Robert Cray setting.
Yeah, and you've got it halfway between the bridge and the middle pickup split.
And chicken picking on that, man, is just
so
nasty. Nasty.
But especially if you compress with chicken picking in runs like that,
right,
it just makes it pop that little bit more through a mix.
Right.
Whether it's live or in a studio.
Yeah.
So that's why it's always been that.
Studio, all the time I'm using limiting amplifiers and compressors that really are just workhorses all around. They're not like geared towards, because like I'm just not a pedal guy. You know what I mean?
I wasn't at first, and then I became one.
Well, maybe I need to spend more time with you.
But then at the same time, I mean, I had a board at one point that I would take that was this big, and it had about 18 to 19 pedals on it. And some of them would get turned on for 30 seconds and never get turned on again.
Right.
That's why I'm a big believer in this HX Stomp thing, because you do have the amp sims that I could use for a PA. But when I do plug it through an amp, I can turn all that off and just have the effects.
Right.
And it's all about portability now. I mean, I have that little mini pedal train mini that's this big. That's it. And that goes with me everywhere. I mean,
that's awesome, man. So last question.
Yep.
By the way, this has been great. Thanks for coming out.
Oh, dude, thanks for having
awesome.
me. Like, got into some parts of my head that I didn't think I still had, so that's great.
What would you tell your 15-year-old self if you go back in time, knowing what you know now?
Wow. Especially it goes back to saying I wouldn't change anything in my life, but now that I have that question posed, what would I tell 15-year-old me? Practice harder. I guarantee you I'd probably be in a lot better place if I'd have spent more time at 15 to 18 practicing. Stop caring about what other guitar players are doing. Because I still cared a lot at that time what other people did.
Yeah.
And how they sounded. And then I'd also tell them to not let other people dictate what you do. There's a lot of times in that early 15 to 22 period where I either let somebody I was with dictate something that was musical to go away or anything like that. You know what I mean? So it basically just not let anybody stop you. I never did, but I could have let it become such a bigger thing.
Right.
I wouldn't change any of the things now, but back then, practice harder. Don't let anybody dictate where you're going musically, or don't let that affect you, and don't let other people try and guide your dream. Because I did for a little bit let people swerve me, and if I would have stayed on such a straighter path, things could have been 100% different now, you know. But that's stuff I wouldn't change.
In theory.
Exactly.
Who knows?
Exactly.
But that's cool, man. And the reason why I asked that is really just for the younger viewers out there. And, you know, it's always about...
Weigh your options, as if you're talking about the younger viewers out there, weigh your options.
Yeah.
Always weigh your options, because if you don't, you never know what could have been, or you never know what you missed out on sometimes. There's so many times where it may seem like the bad thing to stay at home and practice if you're a musician or dancer, or paint if you want to. Stay away from video games.
Yep.
I will tell that to anybody. As somebody who spent some time on video games in their life, like, pick up something. Go play a sport. And that's from a musician, too. Go play a sport. I'm a huge sports fan.
Yeah.
Go play a sport. Pick up an instrument. Paint. Go fishing. Do things that you love to do that involve not sitting there. Because we are so focused on this and things like this in our lives that we lose so much. And if we get rid of that, I mean, it's like the biggest thing I've always said about texting. If I wanted to wait 3 hours for a text to be responded to most of the time, I just sent an email. Text is meant for instant conversation or within 10, 15 minutes.
Yep.
It takes 10 to 30 seconds to send a text message to somebody. If they respond and you're busy, and I get people are busy, when you're walking down the hallway, going to the bathroom real quick, it takes 10 to 30 seconds of your day. But always be aware and make conscious decisions away from these things. Away from the people on the internet, because that's where you're going to find your voice, like a lot of us do later in life. You might find it earlier. You know, look at these child prodigies that are finding their voice at 10,
right?
Because their parents are taking away things like this.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's where I would look at it as.
That's awesome, man. Well, listen, it's been real.
Absolutely,
and
man.
Like I said, we gotta hang out a lot more.
Yeah,
and
not be another 9
not
years.
let 9 years go by. This is crazy.
I know,
so,
right?
Social media. What's the website again?
ReynNobleProductions.com is the website.
We'll have it in the description box.
Yeah, Instagram's the biggest thing you could find me on is the Instagram.
We'll have that link.
Yeah, they'll link that. I mean,
and then some of the videos of
the video stuff of the vlog right now will be Instagram based for snippets for right now.
Okay.
Like before I get it done.
Now you're gonna go on YouTube.
There
with
will
it?
be a YouTube channel.
Okay.
I will link that on any type of.
And I can add the link later.
He can add the link later, but I'll also have it on all those other outlets as well.
Yeah.
And then if you're ever in any of the areas that the Bearded Honeys are playing, come out, see us.
Cool,
Have
man.
fun. Come say hi. Ask me my favorite color again. You know?
See if it changes.
Exactly, right?
That's cool. Well, look, it's been awesome. Thank you guys for viewing. And again, description box for all the social media links. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the content. And thank you again for just tuning in, listening, viewing. You know, we've got a lot of people that just listen when they're at the gym or they're driving around or whatever. So I think we're out.
All right.
Cool stuff, man. We'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks.